Zach and Eitan had been messing around in Cheder. They're called to the rabbi's office, and Zach goes in. The rabbi's sitting at his desk and asks him, "Zach, where is Hashem?" Zach shrugs. "Zach, where is Hashem?" Zach looks to the left, to the right, down at his feet. "Zach, where is Hashem?" At which point Zach turns on his heels and flees from the room, calling after him, "Eitan, Eitan, it's worse than we thought. Hashem has gone missing. The rabbi can't find him, and he thinks that we've got something to do with it." These are difficult times. We find ourselves asking, where is Hashem in all of this? How do we make God more visible? How do we increase Hashem's presence in our world? This week we read the parashah of Kedoshim. The word kadosh means holy. Kedoshim tihiyu, we're told. We must become holy. Judaism doesn't hold that we are inescapably sinful, defective or flawed, so that sanctity is elusive. On the contrary, we can be, and we are charged to be holy. The commentators explain Kedoshim tihiyu as Perushim tihiyu, be separate. However, this isn't a separation from society. Jewish holiness is not a monastic living or a hermit's existence on a remote mountain. It is a separation from excess. It's about balancing our spiritual and physical pleasures. We recite Kiddush on Shabbat and festivals. It is the sanctification of the holy time or holy season over wine. As we proclaim the day spiritually different, we drink alcohol. Apparently, when consumed in excess, wine has the capacity to remove our inhibitions, have us behave recklessly and even inappropriately. Liquor can be the gateway to debasement and debauchery. One might think that it ought to be the very last thing in the world that's used for a proclamation of sanctity. However, our kiddush, our proclamation of distinction between the holy and profane, is made over wine. Holiness is about recognizing that we have to set limits in our lives, knowing how to enjoy and knowing when to stop. Kiddushin is the betrothal or engagement ceremony, the sanctification of a relationship. It is blessed over wine and transacted with the presentation of a ring under the chuppah. The blessing describes the separation and elevation of marriage. It's not just about cohabitation and procreation, companionship and sex. We proclaim marriage as a holy institution. It is purposeful and spiritual. As with the booze, there is much room for excess and overindulgence in our relationships. We must strike a balance between permitted pleasure, which is identified as holy, and philandering and promiscuity, which is not. Two of our key prayers, which must be recited with a minyan, emphasizing holiness in the community, also contain the kadosh root. Kaddish is the prayer we say when broken with grief, in the commemoration of a loved one, as well as when completing a passage of Mishnaic or Talmudic writing. It is not a prayer of tears nor heartrending sorrow. The words are a prayer and celebration and magnification of God's name. When we are most acutely aware of our frailty and sometimes angry, hurt or desperate, Kaddish focuses our words and hopefully channels some of our emotions to the service of God, and with the Osei Shalom Bimromav, to the betterment and peace of our daily lives. The second Kadosh prayer is the Kedusha. This is the responsive passage in the repetition of the Amidah. It is considered one of the most reverential parts of the shul service, and in the presence of the Kedusha, one is required to stop reciting whatever other private prayers and all conversations. The Kedusha is us reenacting conversations between Hashem and the angels, using verses from the prophetic visions of Isaiah and Ezekiel. While much of our prayer emphasizes the chasm between Hashem, infinite and omnipotent, and humanity, finite, flawed, and mortal, in the Kedusha we are engaged to assume the identity of perfect and spiritual beings. Whoever we might be, almost every moment of almost every day, in the Kedusha we are uplifted and should see ourselves as pure, as pristine, and able to talk directly with Hashem as we stand in his presence. When we recite the Kedusha, we are with the angels. We break through the glass ceiling that normally separates the terrestrial from the celestial. In the Torah, the word Kedoshim in the instruction, be holy, is spelt without the letter Vav. In the continuation, where Hashem says, Ki kadosh ani, because I am holy, the letter Vav is there. The 16th century commentator, the Alshich, explains that we ought not to imagine that we can become God, only that we can become godlike or godly. We're missing the Vav. There are limits to what any of us can ever achieve, and we should be realistic about those limits. However, we must set ourselves an aspirational target to achieve our true spiritual potential. Moreover, as we progress to new heights, our reach extends and we can aspire ever higher. Judaism is not just about what we should and should not do. It's about what we should do in order to become who we can be. In many cultures, holiness is associated with isolation. We think of the hermit up a mountain or in a cave. The Jewish approach is very different. There is a prohibition in separating ourselves from the community. The mitzvah of Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, you should love your neighbor as yourself, is one which mandates interaction. So too with our mitzvah of holiness. The pasuk introducing Kedoshim teaches, Daber el kol adat b'nei Yisrael, speak to the entire congregation of Israel. This comes to teach us that holiness isn't about personal piety. Holiness is something that we achieve together as a whole. Holiness is about our relationships with others. Certainly, lofty mountains provide inspirational views. Meditation and isolation enable us to dig deeply within. However, God isn't to be found up mountains or in caves. God is to be found in the community. Though the word kadosh implies elevation and separation, its context is always engagement and connection rather than alienation. Kedoshim tihiyu commands God, fulfill our potential to raise up and perfect our communities, to conduct ourselves with honesty, integrity, and with compassion. Holiness isn't just about our synagogues and our service and our relationship with our God. It is about our dining rooms and our bedrooms, our boardrooms, and the people we encounter every moment of every day. Despite an initial selfish or panicked run on toilet paper and pasta, the last several weeks has seen so many of us rise to the challenge of providing support and building community. Though we might have been separated from friends and family, we have become closer and better as neighbours. Lockdown means that we're not saying Kedusha, and harsher yet, we are not saying Kaddish. These prayers are reserved for when we come together physically as a community. And that is so hard for so many for whom shul is their life, and that ritual a source of structure and comfort. The feeling of loss, and possibly the pain that we couldn't even be there, is exacerbated by the loneliness and the hurt. We cannot even grieve and show respect in the way that we've been raised and which gives us comfort. As we make Kiddush this Friday night, Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim, we highlight the God of freedom who instructed that we must act lovingly towards our neighbours and even strangers. And in Kiddush on Shabbat morning, Zecher L'Ma'aseh Bereshit, we remember the God of creation who said that it is not good for humanity to be alone. I yearn for a return to virtuous communities, however much we've achieved with our virtual communities. The warmth of presence, a hug and a handshake, people looking me in the eye rather than at pixels on a screen. May the many acts of kindness which we have shown over the last few weeks draw Hashem to be more evident in ending this virus, healing our sick and alleviating our pain. May Hashem create the circumstances for us to end lockdown and isolation. V'nikdashti b'toch b'nei Yisrael. May Hashem be sanctified with kedushas and kaddishes of his congregations. B'mheira v'yameinu, speedily. and in our days. Shabbat Shalom.